Hey guys, it's Siobhan with To Kitty and Beyond. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about karma. There's several different types of karma, and there seems to be a misunderstanding in the general population, or rather simply a misnomer around what karma actually is. There's this idea that karma is a bitch, or that karma is always negative, or that karma is something that you deserve. These are false beliefs. These are created beliefs that stem from fear of consequence. Essentially, what karma is simply a product of a choice. It is the result of an action. It is the consequence of a movement forward. So if we look at karma sort of like inertia or energy, when you push a ball in a certain direction, it's going to continue to roll in that direction. You've taken an action, and then there's a result that comes from that action. If you were to push a ball in the other direction, or throw it up in the air, or bounce it on the ground, each result of your action is going to have a different outcome. So, or you know what I'm saying. So there's really no judgment when it comes to karma. It's simply a universal law. It's like gravity. It doesn't come to you based on what it thinks about you. It's really just a product of movement, of energy, of focus, of intention, and of action, which ultimately is energy in motion. So there also is different kinds of karma depending on the choices that you've made. So there's what we can term negative karma, which is any choice that was made from a place of fear or lack, or any choice that was made from a place that was out of alignment with who you are at soul level. And this is going to look different for everybody. So what one person chooses that's wrong for them may be right for somebody else, and vice versa. It really depends on what your energetic imprint is and what you came here to do. So there are some negative karmic choices that we can apply to lots of people, especially if it's, harming somebody else in some way. Oftentimes that's going to have a negative outcome no matter what your soul blueprint is. But on the other hand, it goes the same for positive choices, where every choice that you've made that comes from a place of love is often going to result in positive karma or positive karmic feedback. So this is basically just feedback of our choices. It's the resulting manifestation of our intention and our action. So again, with the positive, it's going to depend on what your blueprint is and what is positive for you. So we can sort of generalize and say that if it's made out of love, then it's positive. If it's made out of fear, then it's negative, but that's not always the case. And it gets a lot more nitpicky when it gets down to the individual level, because each individual, like I said, has a different soul blueprint and things that will be right or wrong for them in their life. So not to get too much into detail about that, you can sort of feel into it and intuit for yourself what feels right and what feels wrong, what feels expansive and what feels negative to you or restricting, limited, and go from there. Now, there's other types of karma as well. You've got ancestral karma, which is passed down through the DNA. So this is choices that your ancestors have made. And through epigenetics, which is the consciousness choosing to alter the DNA through experience. And this is not something, even though I just used the word choose, it's not something that necessarily happens on a conscious level. This happens all the time, and it's kind of how we evolve physically as well as spiritually. So it's really taking the spiritual aspects of consciousness and boiling it down into a point where it can be translated into data that is then imprinted into your DNA. So when you believe something, or when you experience something and then you learn from that experience, or when you make a choice and then you continue to make those types of choices based on your beliefs, it boils down to DNA. It boils down into the imprinting and the coding that makes up your physical body. So this is how spirit and consciousness translate down into the physical body, or relate to the physical body and evolution therein. So ancestral DNA and ancestral karma can still affect you because it's in your DNA, even though they were not your choices per se. Because they're in your bloodline, you may still have to look at those and deal with those, and you may not even realize that the choices that you're making are reflective of the choices that your ancestors made. So that's why it's important to do your family history for yourself, or to sort of meditate on what these choices are and where they're coming from, so you can kind of get a little bit more information on the motivation for these choices or these patterns in your life. Now, we also have past life karma. So this is your karmic choices that have sort of carried over from a past life. And these are the choices that you made in that life based on the life that you had, the experiences that you had, the level of consciousness that you had. And then when you incarnated into this new life, into this new body, playing this entirely new character, you still, again, you hold that consciousness experience, whether you realize it or not, and you will tend to make choices that are based off of your prior experiences, information, and so on. So it's not that necessarily if there's negative karma spilling over from past life, it's not that you need to pay retribution, or that, you did something bad and now you have to pay the consequences. That's not the case. It's more so that you've made choices based on what you experienced in that life, and that consciousness has now transferred over into this life, and you're continuing to make the same choices because that's where your consciousness level is at. So to alleviate this cycle, especially if it's negative and it's not working for you and you're not enjoying it, or you seek to change your experience in this life to do something else, because it's free will. You can continue to do that same thing over and over again. That's fine. You can choose to change it. That's fine too. It really doesn't matter either way. You're still going to have an experience, and you're still going to grow from it eventually. So there's no judgment if you have negative karma and you continue to basically, like, it's a negative feedback loop, or choose to opt for a positive feedback loop. Doesn't matter. But basically, the key is to understand the karmic choices from the root. So what caused you to make that choice in the first place, and what was the level of consciousness that developed because of that, or in light of that? So changing your karmic debt, and I don't really like that term, karmic debt, because it's not something that you have to pay off. It's not something that you have to work really hard to, pay back. You may have to put in effort and conscious intention to shift the choices that you're making, but it's not like you're paying back a debt. It's more so that you are consciously working towards changing the types of choices that you're making based on your beliefs and your experience. And ultimately, experience just creates beliefs, because an experience leads us to believe something about what has happened, and then, or to think something about what has happened. And then when we think something repeatedly, it becomes a belief. So it's consciousness that we're working with here, right? And consciousness is influenced through intention, through awareness, and especially self-awareness. So when we choose to look at the core reasons why we do what we do, why we think what we think, why we act how we act, or make choices the way that we do, then we can start to shift things. If we start to look at the deeper root cause of why things are the way they are in our experience, in our life, and go back not only into our past lives to see how these things are congruent, how they line up, how they started and how they perpetuated themselves, as well as into our ancestral DNA, and then our past in this life. So if you don't know what your karmic patterns are, the first step is to look at patterns. That's why they're called karmic patterns. So you want to look at your life and discern where there have been things that have repeated. They may not be the same every single time, but the theme will remain the same, or the underlying choice will hold a very similar energetic frequency. So this is kind of where you want to look at to discern where your karma is coming from, what it's surrounding as well, because we can make karmic choices about everything. Every little choice that we make is karmic, essentially. And so this is not to freak you out into not making any choices at all or completely overthinking all of your choices. It's really just about setting the intention and the focus to what choices are best for you, as well as that can serve the greater consciousness of humanity. So again, we're doing a major balancing act here. We've got all of these different karmic factors to consider. We've got our own experience and our life to consider, and then we have the collective consciousness of the rest of humanity to consider. So these are a lot of things, and I think that's why people get really overwhelmed when they think of karma and then they just make it very black and white. But really, in reality, it's a multitude of factors that we need to bring together to understand and therefore have the information, the knowledge that we need to make productive choices for ourselves and for the world. So let's start at a self basis always, because we don't want to go out and seek to change the world before we change ourselves. Ultimately, it's a moot point if you're trying to do that, and it really doesn't get you anywhere. It will only ever lead you into more lack, because you cannot change the world. You can only change yourself by how you interact with the world, how you experience the world, how you choose to act, and what you believe, because how you act is based on what you believe. So this is just a little bit of a brief overview of karma. This isn't even going really, really in depth. It goes a lot deeper than that. And so I really encourage you guys to do some more research for yourself, to dig deeper, not only into karma itself, but into your choices and your especially repetitive choices, whether this is in relationships, whether it's in your towards money, your home life, your physical body, food. All of these different choices are karmic, and they can be positive or negative depending on what works for you. So I really encourage you guys to connect with your higher self, because this will give you a more, a broader perspective of what works for you and what doesn't, what feels good for you and what doesn't. And you can kind of go from there. Also doing past life work, really, really beneficial. Getting Reiki sessions where the person specializes in doing soul work, or quantum healing hypnosis therapy, or any kind of past life regression, or ancestral regression, or past childhood regression from this life can really help you to discern what is creating your karmic choices, what level you're creating your karmic choices from. So I think that's it for today. That's all I wanted to talk about. If you guys have any additional questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below and to discuss your beliefs on karma. What beliefs do you hold about it? Where are these coming from? And what have your results been? Let's create an open discussion around this, because this is just a level of understanding that I've reached, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's 100% true either, because everything is a subjective experience and we learn as we go. So, all right, guys, I think that's it for today. I love you. Thank you so much for being here, for supporting the channel, and for being patient with me as I go through my own karmic process of understanding my choices, which has been very enlightening, and also created a lot of purging. So that's kind of why I've been absent for the past month or two. I've been working really hard on digging up things from the past, and that can be painful, but it's necessary. And that is what I have come to at this point in my spiritual journey. If you guys would like to book a Reiki healing session with me to get to the nitty-gritty of what's going on in your soul, feel free to do so. All of the information will be in the description box below. I also do readings, tarot readings. So if you'd like one of those to get a little bit more clarity, I have several different types of readings, and I do have past life readings as well. All right, guys, I love you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye.